This is Sammy Pierre Douay from Goat Whore, and you're watching CMS TV.
It is CHRIS Akin Presents, and I, of course, am Chris Akin, and I am happy to be talking to this guy. He is, well, he's been in every band known to man, I think, and he still is. He's in every damn band, and I love seeing him with Slash. I've seen him God knows how many times here in Cleveland with Slash, and but he's got a new band, and it's really, really killer. It is an absolute ass-kicking rock and roll / metal-y type of a band called Heroes and Monsters. And here to talk all about it is the hero and the monster himself, Mr. Todd Kerns. Look at that.
Speaking of Cleveland.
Got the buzzard shirt on. Look at that.
So I you just randomly was wearing that. I wasn't even anticipating you.
Very nice, man. Well, dude, obviously, as I told you right before we started, man, I love this record, man.
Thank you.
Kind of, for people that haven't heard it yet, which is most people because it's not out for a couple of weeks, but I would say it comes in sort of in that tinging on heavy metal, but more hard rock with a lot of Cheap Trick mixed in there. And, you know, that's how it feels to me. Is that how it feels kind of to you?
I think that's inevitably impossible not to do that. I think, you know, for me, it's kind of like that sort of Cheap Trick sort of song kind of fun aspect oriented is always going to be a part of everything I do. So, but it is heavier. I mean, Will Smith is one bad MF. But yeah, I think that's the perfect description that anybody could imagine.
Sure. Well, dude, before we get all the way into Heroes and Monsters, I just wanted to ask you, you're involved, as I jokingly said at the beginning, you're involved in a lot of projects and a lot of bands. And you've put a lot of time into, like, Toque, especially. I know every time I've seen a Facebook post for the last 2-3 years, and don't forget, check out Toque, and we're going to be at this, and, you know. So what leads you, when you've sort of started building a project, to start another project instead of kind of morphing Toque into this?
Well, I think most of the things that I do, I mean, keeping in mind, say, Toque or otherwise, it's like usually with friends who are doing other things. So it's kind of like say with Toque, it's sort of like me and Fitz from Slash's band.
Sure.
But he and I both play with Bruce Kulick when we do the Kiss Cruise, you know. And then Corey, the guitar player, is in Shania Twain's band. So he has stuff that he does once in a while. So a lot of these things are based upon when everybody's available, we do that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And it's sort of, it seems like there's 100 things on the go, but it's sort of very, you know, like with the Bruce Kulick thing, we do the Kiss Cruise for a couple weeks every year. And then that thing kind of goes into mothballs till, you know, till something else comes up. Something like Heroes and Monsters really kind of comes into being mostly due to things like the pandemic, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Sort of lockdown, sitting around, and your friend calls up and goes, "Hey man, we're knocking some ideas around. What do you think?" And it's like, send the files over. Let's knock some shit around. And then next thing you know, you've got some songs, and then some more songs, and the next thing you know, you've got an album. And that's, I mean, without putting it, you know, making it sound, without dumbing it down too much, that's pretty much how it happens. You know, you just sort of keep just taking that ball of foil and adding another piece of foil, and the next thing you know, it fills the whole goddamn room, you know. And yeah, there are times where I go, do I need another thing on my plate? But it is one of those things where, from a creative standpoint, I think, you know, when you look at the Slash thing, especially. Slash is, you know, the songs get written, you know, Slash has riffs, Myles has lyrics and melody. I throw my 2 cents in all the time and have been, you know, credited on a bunch of occasions as well. So that's awesome. But, you know, it's like, as a singer and a songwriter and blah, 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 blah.
Sure.
These other other things come down the pipeline and you go, hell yeah, let's do that. You know, it's, and of course you're being allowed, you know, certain, just chunks of time where you're like, you know, no one expected us all to be locked in our houses for 2 years or whatever. You know? So it's like, you want to write some songs and knock? Yes, I do. I don't need to watch the Tiger King again or whatever the hell's on, you know. And the next thing you know, it's just too much fun. Honestly, it's like that. To me, it's kind of like, it'd be different if I felt like,
sure,
yeah, I guess we'll make some music together. It's like, it's in reality, it's more like, hell yeah, it sounds like fun. With Will Hunt, one of the fucking best drummers I know, absolutely.
Hell yeah.
And Stef's a monster talent, you know.
Sure. Now, did you know those guys real well going in, or how does it end up that guy contacts you, that contacts Stef, etc.? How does that all work?
Well, I knew Will. I've known Will, but Stef and Will know each other, so it's like one of those, you know. So
sure.
So Stef and Will had been commiserating for a while and had some ideas and knocking some stuff around, and then it was. You know, then it was just sort of like, hey man, what do you think about doing this thing? And without really any giant plan in place, just sort of like, what do you think? You know, and you know, a guitar player, drummer. What about a guy who plays bass and sings? Let's see if we can. You know, I don't think there was even really a large plan as it being a power trio, or maybe we'd find somebody else too to come in and play tuba, or you know, who knows? You know, but it just ended up being like, you know, that made the most sense, and it was the most fun, and that just sort of became what you're hearing, you know.
Sure. Did you at all consider bringing in a bass player so that you could just be the front man, just be the singer?
Not on this. No, we never really entertained that too much. I think it was just kind of like, it was more a case of like, I don't remember it being a discussion, frankly. I remember it just being kind of like, yeah, I'll play bass on this. Yeah, I'll sing this. Yeah, it's cool. And the next thing you know, you're like, I'm sitting in my studio, they're in their studios, and you just kind of send stuff around. Stef's in like Milan, Italy.
Sure.
Will's in Orlando, and I'm in Vegas. So it's kind of like this bizarre, it was a real experiment more than anything, just to see if that's even something that could be done. And it can be, Chris.
Sure. Well, it obviously can be. We've got an album right here, you know. So you know, with you guys all three being, you know, so busy, and you know, it's such a weird thing. Three guys, and you might have the most reaches ever into the mega bands of all time. I mean, you with Kiss, you with Slash or Guns N' Roses, and you know, Stef with, you know, all the way up to Prince, if you count the Sheila E. connection, you know, and obviously Will with Evanescence and Black Label Society, and you know, every other of the 43 bands he's been in as well. It is amazing that you guys, who are very busy, were able to find time to, not necessarily to write songs, because I know you guys are always writing music and thinking of things, but to work creatively to put it together. Is there a leader in that? Are you the leader that kind of says, well, I need a riff that sounds like this, or I need a drum fill that sounds like this? Or is it so organic that you guys just throw it back and forth until it fits?
I think it's mostly just throwing it back and forth. I mean, there's a number of things that, like, you know, the first thing we put together was Locked and Loaded, which was largely some music that they had, and I just sort of cobbled together vocals and lyrics, and it basically what you're hearing is what it was. And you know, and then so you have that experiment, and that worked, and then another thing works, and then one doesn't kind of work as well, and then one's kind of way off, and then another one works again. And that's kind of part of the charm of trying to kind of you know, just when you're knocking shit around, you know, it's like some stuff works, some stuff doesn't. And even when you're writing a record, say when Slash and the guys, when we're putting a record together, there's often like 20 songs written, but you're only going to use 10 or whatever, you know? And that's, you know, that's just sort of the way it goes. And So I wouldn't say anybody was necessarily leading it as much as I think everybody has to lead in their own way, because it's sort of like, what about this? What about that? And then you just sort of like just chase it all down, basically.
Sure. Now, how much of the stuff that you personally create do you have to sit back and think, well, I want to put that here, or I want to hold that to see if Slash wants to use it, or I want to use it for Toque, or, how do you do that a lot?
To be honest, I think that for me, I'm a big sort of like project by project by project kind of guy. I'm not the kind of guy who sort of goes, I'm going to hold on to this pile of ideas and do this with it or do that with it. I often think that the ones that didn't work for this or that usually didn't work for a reason, so they remain in this didn't work pile. And I'm often inspired by, like when you're working with guys like Will and Stef, it's like, well, these are some amazingly talented guys. They're clearly going to have some things to they're going to have things that I can't possibly imagine. So that's kind of the beauty of working with guys like that, is that they're going to do something or they bring something to it that I would never have thought of. You know what I mean? And that sort of is exactly what happened.
Okay. Well, it definitely worked.
Well, thank you.
Now I didn't see it in the press release and in the notes, so I'll just ask, did you do the production on this, or did you guys have a producer, or who did that?
Mostly it was, we kind of considered a co-production, all of us, but Will had such a big part in the mixing and all that kind of stuff too. He's a very hands-on, I always kind of giggle about it because we want to say he's not just a drummer. It's like he can write, he can mix, he can do all these things. So there's different fingers on the mixes and stuff as well, with Alessandro and friends at Frontiers to make it all come together as well. So it's it takes a village. It really does, especially in projects like this. I think that, often the solo projects are where you get to really kind of flex I want this and I want that, and then this needs to be here and this needs to be there. I like collaborative things to be collaborative. You know what I mean? I think it has to be.
Sure, definitely. You mentioned Alessandro, and my God, is there a record he's not on these days? Jeez, oh man, that guy is a great guy. I mean, I don't think there's a nicer guy in the entire business than Alessandro, but wow, is he a machine when it comes to writing and playing and being in bands?
I know.
No, I don't think anybody works more than that guy, do they?
It's inspiring, I think, because, we're literally thinking of talk in the 21st century. It's such a sad thing that most of our heroes don't even make new records anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I want to hear new Aerosmith songs. I want to hear new Kiss songs. I want to hear new. And it's just not going to happen. Cheap Trick keeps making new music, and they're actually great. But there's not a lot of motivation, unfortunately, because the music industry is so, it's different. And as far as what we do, it may not be as advantageous financially to be putting out music. And I think that, with Alessandro and that whole crowd, it's like, it's somebody who's still trying, people who are still trying to kind of like push forward the idea of creating new music. So for guys like me who just constantly feel like, yeah, let's get together, let's knock some ideas around, let's put some shit on tape, let's get it out there. It doesn't matter if it's going to sell one record or 1 million. Right. It'd be nice if it sold 1 million, frankly. But the reality is, it's that's not why we make music. It's never. I was never motivated by the car I drive or the whatever that kind of stuff. It's sort of like I just love making music.
Right on. And you're motivated by the stage you get to play on, really, right?
And the stage you get to play on, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Todd, obviously, man, you have this new release. It is called Heroes and Monsters. And I figured what we would do is take a little break here and play a clip from one of the videos from Let It Ride, which is a killer song. I want you to tell everybody a little bit about this song and the video.
Well, this song is definitely more of a Cheap Trick. It's funny that you brought that up because I always keep talking about how the Cheap Trick influence on this song and some sweet stuff like that. Just a great, big gang vocal kind of fun rock and roll song. I try not to overthink these things. There's a lot of like, you put your thinking cap on too much, and sometimes you can overthink a lot of these things. And I think the song kicks ass. It's great. I love singing it. It's stuck in my head. Let's roll with it. So we did. It's called Let's Ride It.
All right. Well, let's play it right now. Let's let it ride. It is Heroes and Monsters right here on Chris Akin Presents.
She's keeping it downtown, yeah. I'm keeping it downtown, yeah. My head just goes around. Let's ride it, invite it. Never be a better day, so don't fight it. If it's never good enough, just fake it, yeah. Do what you feel, do what you want. We can make it happen, do it all night long. If you want it bad enough, just take it.
That was Let's Ride It. It was Heroes and Monsters, and the main hero himself is here, Todd Dammit Kerns. And Todd,
Or the main monster. You know?
it could be. Could be the main monster. Definitely the main hero. At least the rock hero. How's that?
Okay, I appreciate that.
Well, dude, the songs on Heroes and Monsters are very diverse. I do want to say that it's not. I get a lot of these kind of records, and I'll just be honest, a lot of them from Frontiers, and they really do kind of sound the same. And I don't want to pick on any bands, but a lot of them, you know, they just write in one session, and it sounds like they wrote in one session.
Right.
This really stretches out. There's a lot of cool songs on here. Did this come together quickly, or was this over a longer period of time, which caused some diversity in the songs and the structure of the songs?
I don't think it's a matter of how long it took. I think it's more a case of like, you got three people who sort of all have a very sort of common ground as far as what we like in music. And then you're going to get that sense of like the differences that everybody's into as well. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, even for a guy like myself, I can tell you, straight honestly that I'm like, I will listen to Slayer and ABBA in the same day. It's just kind of who I am, And I think that sometimes that's just going to filter through in terms of the records that are made. So something like, I'm glad to hear you say that, because you're one of the first people that I've talked to today who's actually talked about the diversity of the record. And I think it's important, because when you've cobbled together, say 15 songs, and you try to get it down to 10, there is a sort of there is a way of thinking that says it should be all these songs because they sound like the same thing. You know what I mean? And
Sure.
then you suffer from what you were just saying about it being, maybe it's just like the same song 10 times, just
Right.
different version of the same song. And I'm like, no, I prefer that Taking a Ride, so that, like that Whole Lot of Love and Stairway to Heaven are done by the same band, but they're completely different kinds of songs,
Right.
So I think that kind of diversity is sort of trying to be represented. And, you can certainly get into the conversation of like, this one sounds sort of modern, this one sounds sort of throwback, and this one sounds sort of classic, and I think, well, yeah, but I think all of those things I just mentioned are all in all of us. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's inevitably going to come out.
Right, definitely. Yeah, and I'll tell you, it kind of all comes together in a weird way for me on what is my favorite song on the record, which is Blame, which is such the pacing on this thing is the thing that strikes me as I literally, this is so dumb, but I literally sat here listening to it a few times, and I was like, okay, it's definitely in 4/4 time. I'm literally counting it off in my head.
Yeah,
1, 2, 3. But the vocal presentation doesn't follow a standard vocal presentation. You like come in on like the 2 instead of the 1 and kind of drag over into the next set of 4. And I know I'm explaining this like a moron, but because I don't know musical theory, but
I'm glad to hear you say that, because I'm the kind of guy that doesn't think in the terms you're talking. I'm just kind of like going, okay, so we just sing this, and it's sort of like, if I start thinking about it comes in on the 3, or it comes in on the 2, or it comes in on the 4, it's sort of like, it just has to kind of be more of a feel thing than anything else. But it is a very interesting, there's definitely some prog moments happening there that those guys, that's more those guys than me by far. I'm not built that way, but they, it's really a very clever way that comes together for sure.
Sure. It's a great song. I really, really like that one a ton.
Oh, well,
and
thank you.
And I hope people dig that deep into the record, which I hate to say it, but that is like the biggest crime today of putting out a full record is people will hear the first songs, they'll see the videos, but they won't go all the way through an album on Spotify anymore, man. And it's tough because a lot of the good music for me in my head is later in most releases and always has been. I've always been a kind of a side B guy.
Can you imagine if you never listened to side 2 of Zeppelin 2 or Appetite for Destruction or whatever? That's where some of the best gold is. Yeah.
Yeah. I've always been the guy that thinks that the trash of the records is the ones that the radio stations play. Those are kind of, they're the hook. And then once they get you, then you really discover if you like a band or not.
Totally.
And I think your record is really, really like that. I think all of the best songs, even though the 3 that you've released are the top 3, I think truthfully, the cover, the sweet cover that you guys did, and the final song, "And You'll Remain," are the best. Those and "Blame" are the best tunes on the record. Well, since I mentioned that one, talk about "And You'll Remain," man. That one seems a little more personal than kind of the rest of it.
Yeah, that's a song that was co-written with some other people. Jordan, who works for Evanescence, he's a manager. And he's, it's sort of, I don't want to put too many words in anybody's mouth, but I know it is written about loss and, about the loss of someone important. And I think that, without me putting too fine a point on something that I may not fully understand, and I probably should understand better if I'm going to have to talk about the fucking song. But it's kind of one of those things where, even for myself, it's sort of like, I think that's the beauty of music and the beauty of lyrics, in a sense, is it's like, you can apply what's being said to what's going on in your own life or what you've been through. And I think that that's kind of what I try to do because I didn't write the lyrics to that song. So for me, it was more a case of applying that to my own world. But it is a very powerful song. Yeah. It was one of those songs that I had to, because there's often times where you're not creatively involved in a song from a writing standpoint, you go, well, this is such a great song, we have to include it because it's just so strong.
Sure. Definitely. Is it difficult in those situations to put emotion behind it, to not sound emotionless on something that is emotional?
That is the challenge. I mean, because there is also the other side of it too, where you're trying to sing in key and trying to sing on time and trying to sing perfect, quote unquote. But not lose the emotion, because in fact, the emotion is more important than almost those other things that I was just saying. I think people will take a flub note or a cracking voice or whatever if it feels like something, you know what I mean? So that's kind of what I was trying to convey anyway. Whether it was successful or not, is up to the ears of the objective
exactly
audience.
Right on. Well, dude, new bands like Heroes and Monsters, definitely in today's world where every single band known to man is out there trying to play shows and tour, it's difficult to get out there. It's difficult to find shows. Hell, half the clubs are gone from where they were 2 years ago.
Totally.
How has it been for you guys to try and, put it together and maybe find some shows and, get out there?
Well, we are doing a run in Italy, which is one of those bizarre, like Stef Burns connection, maybe a little bit of Frontiers connection, which just sort of presented itself and spun into another and another and another and another. And when we're talking about, like, just as I was mentioning about Shania Twain and Slash and blah, blah, blah in Toque, and now in this situation, you've got Evanescence and you've got Stef and all the things he does and all the things that I do. So trying to find those windows of like when we can actually do something, that's the challenge, and so this became kind of like, hell yeah, let's go do it. Let's go do and, just do a run and have fun with it. And so we're going to do a quick run of that and then see what we can do as time presents itself down the line. So who knows? That's kind of the beauty of most of this is just sort of like depends on how it goes and what presents itself down the line.
Right on. Well, I'm going to ask you one question that has nothing to do with any of your bands, believe it or not, but it's a you and I have a mutual friend, and you toured with her, Moriah Formica, And I just wanted to get your take as someone that got to see her every night for 5-6 weeks, whatever it was. What did you think of obviously Plush, but more importantly, her as a vocalist? Because I just think she's like the best vocalist out there, period, today.
I couldn't agree more. I think the fact that I didn't even know she was going to be doing Trans-Siberian.
Yeah.
We just did the Kiss Cruise together. The girls were there, and no one said anything to me about that. And the next thing I knew, she was, and I know, like, Jeff Scott Soto, Blas Elias, Joel Hoekstra. I know tons of people in
TSO.
So I was just kind of like, wow. It just sort of, I should have known about that. And then when I started to hear about it, and then when I saw it, I was like, well, it's a no-brainer, clearly.
Right.
And her voice is like you say, one of the best voices out there, period, in modern rock and in general, really. I mean, she's, on top of that, she's an angel of a person. So
yeah,
it was, and I love that band so much. They're so great. And that energy to see young people and get that energy of people just, from guys like us who've been doing this for years.
Right.
Like, it's like, we're, I don't remember. I mean, I wish I'd had the opportunities they had at their age, but I probably wouldn't be here now if I,
right.
gotten to the level they're at their age. So yeah, no, they're an amazing band, but she's really an amazing talent.
Yeah. I just hope the business doesn't eat her up. That's the only fear I have, is she's awful young to be that good, and that's
she
scary.
sure seems rock solid. So we'll see. Hopefully she keeps that. I mean, when they're on the Kiss Cruise, their dads are on the Kiss Cruise. I mean, so
right.
It's kind of like they've got a good. They seem to have a solid feet on solid ground that way, for sure.
Right on, man. Well, dude, obviously swinging it back to Heroes and Monsters, brand new release. It is out January 20th. It is simply called Heroes and Monsters. And I figured we'd wrap this one up with a little clip from Raw Power, which is definitely meets the title. It is definitely a raw power of a track. But before we play the track, why don't you tell everybody where we should tell them to go to keep up with you and Heroes and Monsters and tour dates and all that good stuff?
Well, I can be found on all the social medias. Todd Kerns, Todd Dammit Kerns on Twitter. Heroes and Monsters, that's on all the pages as well. So, and at the end of the they made that movie Great Balls of Fire about Jerry Lee Lewis. I remember at the end of the movie it said something like, blah blah blah, Jerry Lee Lewis, and he's, you can probably see him on a stage somewhere tonight. I remember thinking, like, I want someone to say that about me someday. And I think that's very true. It's kind of like, I kind of feel like, sure enough, Todd's playing somewhere tonight. So not actually, I'm actually not playing tonight, but, but there's a very good chance that, if you stumble into Las Vegas or somewhere, or if you just take a look at my toddkerns.com or something, you'll find me somewhere playing sometime soon. So come say hi.
There you go. All right. So one more time, it is Heroes and Monsters, the same title for the album, January 20th. Make sure you buy it. Don't just stream it. Come on, guys, buy the music. And Todd, as always, man, great talking to you right here on CHRIS AKIN Presents.
A pleasure, Chris. Thank you so much.